And now we try to turn the page on the Myles Garrett situation. Chris, while you were gone, Myles Garrett was reinstated. And one day after he got reinstated by the league, he sat down with ESPN and he went public with his claim that Mason Rudolph had used a racial slur moments before Myles Garrett removed Mason Rudolph's helmet and whacked him over the head with it. And look, I don't believe the NFL is very happy with this timeline, with Myles Garrett getting back in and then immediately stirring things up by going public with his claim that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur, especially because this was already out there in November. It was leaked that Myles Garrett had raised this argument at his appeal hearing. The Steelers denied it then. Rudolph denied it then. And now it's all stirred up again. And it really got stirred up over the weekend, Chris. Mike Tomlin issued a statement supporting Mason Rudolph. Rudolph took to Twitter to say that the claim is 1,000% false, bold-faced lie. I did not, have not, and would not utter a racial slur. This is a disgusting and reckless attempt to assassinate my character. Here's my response, okay? Myles Garrett isn't trying to assassinate Mason Rudolph's character. He's just a bystander in this. Myles Garrett is trying to avoid becoming Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah, exactly right.
Myles Garrett needs justification for why he did what he did. Otherwise, he is Vontaze Burfict because he'd been fined for a couple of illegal hits before that moment. And if you don't have provocation, if you don't have justification for taking off a guy's helmet and hitting him over the head with it, you're Vontaze Burfict. And you're flagged with that for the rest of your career. This is why I think Garrett said what he said. And he says, well, I'm not saying this to justify anything. There is no justification. Okay, fine. He wants people who are in the court of public opinion to hear that claim and think there was justification, there was provocation, there was reason for Garrett to do what he did. And without provocation, he looks like a madman.
Yes, he does. I mean, this guy is a hell of a player, Myles Garrett. I mean, he is in the conversation for one of the best defensive players in football. You know, to what you're saying, you're right. He's saying it more about protecting himself than trying to really accuse Mason Rudolph. But the problem is it's a low blow, and I got issues with it. I do. I mean, to me, it's just, you know, and again, if that word was said, then screw Mason Rudolph, and I'll never say a good thing about him ever again in my life. But the way this went down, to me, does not show that I can sit here and just necessarily, you know, take Myles Garrett at his word. I can't. You know, first off, if that type of thing happened, this is where I would back up what Mike Tomlin said. You know, if that word was said, we would have heard this right after the game. He would have said this to the in this press conference at his locker when he was talking to everybody. This is too big of a thing. Two, I think you would have also heard other guys on the field who were close by who would echo it. Even teammates. If Mason Rudolph went there, I would expect somebody like Pouncey or whoever it is to be like, no, you know, Mason did some things. He might not out him, but I would expect them to kind of show us some way that, you know, Mason maybe deserved to get clocked over the head somehow, some way. There's none of that. So that, to me, is wrong. And then this, too, Mike, this is the other part that bothers me. You know, when Myles Garrett first told the NFL behind closed door, his first comment was, oh, they told me that wasn't going to get out. You know, to me, that's fishy in itself as well. Like, I'm going to say this, and I'm hoping it's going to stay behind closed doors because it's not really real, and I don't want to become public.
No.
So
he wanted it to get out. He wanted it to get out
yes.
because he wanted the average person to possibly look at that evidence and say, now I know why he removed the guy's helmet and hit him over the head with it. Not that it makes it right, but now I know why he did it.
Right.
Because otherwise, there's no reason for it. Otherwise, you do look like there's something wrong with you, that you would blow a fuse that easily and do something that heinous on a football field. And, you know, Chris, let's apply common sense here. Even if Myles Garrett isn't prepared in the aftermath of that game to explain why he did what he did. And, you know, he was so calm. I got two commonsensical points to make. One, at his locker, he was calm. He said, I lost my cool. I mean, you know what? If that's what was said, he should still be mad.
Right.
He should still be mad then.
He's not even mad in that clip we're showing right there. You know, I think the actions of a guy that was just called a word like that is so egregious and horrible in our society and in general, that he would be yelling things right there as he's being pushed back by the Steelers if that was the case. You would see rage on him then. You don't see that, to your point. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, here's the other point, too. Even if he doesn't mention it at the post-game press conference. He's in the locker room with 52 other guys.
Exactly.
And guys are going to be asking him,
right,
why did you do what you did?
Right.
Why did you? It would have gotten out. It would have been everywhere. It would have been more than just maybe somebody who got word as to what one of the arguments is going to be at the appeal hearing. It would have been 50 different players know about it, and they're telling 50 different people in the media about it, or their agents or whoever. It would have been rampant by the weekend if that was something that Myles Garrett was telling his teammates in the immediate aftermath of the event happened. The mere fact that it didn't happen, and this is kind of what meshes with Mike Tomlin's point.
Right.
Like I would have heard something about this. It's just common sense.
Yes.
Something like that goes down, you're going to hear about it before it gets mentioned a week later at the guy's appeal hearing. Period.
Right. I think that's exactly it. And you know, listen, again, Myles Garrett's a young man. He's still learning. I hope he's learned from this and he continues to, you know, become a better person, a better player, all of those things. I mean, he's a superstar of our league. I don't think this is a guy that has, like, true meanness in his heart. I don't. I think this is a guy that just lost his cool in a weird situation. And I'm not trying to, like, totally let Mason Rudolph be get away scot-free here either. Yeah, was he on the ground kicking a little bit and trying to rip Myles Garrett helmet off? Certainly. But I still would go back to Myles Garrett started the issue to me. And I wish if we could show the play in totality if we have it in the back control room. Because, again, Mason Rudolph throws a ball to his left. Myles Garrett sees him throw the ball. I mean, this is a very high-level aware football player. Okay? Within seeing it, he still tries to hit Mason Rudolph and knows he's thrown the ball and then won't let go. The ball's gone for 1 count. 2 counts, almost 3 counts, and he's still holding on to Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph threw the ball right by his face and ear hole as he threw it. So he surely saw it. So that he gave Mason Rudolph the business there by holding on. And then it looked like he got frustrated that he didn't bring him to the ground, and he just kept holding him. Then Mason Rudolph was certainly in the wrong by kicking and throwing a little fit and trying to maybe rip his helmet off. But Myles Garrett pushed it to another level, as we know. And that's where it all went wrong.
At a time in the game when the game was over.
It was over. It meant nothing.
It was over.
Browns were in
this
a nice,
wasn't the fourth quarter of a close game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's where it just is a little, I guess, fishy. It's fishy. I tend to believe, like, what Mike, and there's the play. See? I mean, there's no way he didn't see him throw the ball, and he wouldn't let go of him. And then, of course, the little scrum goes out, and then Myles Garrett just goes entirely too far with the play in general. And, like I said, I want to make it perfectly clear. If Mason Rudolph said that word, then screw Mason Rudolph, and I'll never root for you again. But to me, Myles Garrett's explanation is fishy at the very least at this point, at this standpoint. I err with, like, what Mike Tomlin said in his quote.
Mason Rudolph's lawyer also took to Twitter over the weekend, and all these developments happened on Saturday. The Mike Tomlin statement, the Mason Rudolph tweet, and then Timothy Younger, who represents Mason Rudolph, issued a lengthy statement. And the big takeaway is there could be a lawsuit filed against Myles Garrett for defamation of character. Not the easiest thing to do when you're a public figure, and even though Mason Rudolph isn't a very good quarterback, he's still a public figure. He has to show actual malice, and what that means is he has to show that Myles Garrett knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard to whether or not the statement was true or false. And you could argue, hey, Myles, why are you repeating this contention when you've seen and heard the reaction from the news that came out of the appeal hearing? Mason Rudolph denied it then. The Steelers denied it then. What have you done to investigate whether or not maybe you just misheard? And I don't rule out, Chris, the possibility. There's a possibility, slim as it may be, that Myles Garrett thinks he heard something that wasn't said.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the details of his story are a little bit fishy, and I think a lawyer could really make hay there to eliminate the idea that he mistakenly heard something that wasn't said. I mean, but the bottom line is the lawyer is rattling the sword. It doesn't mean a lawsuit will be filed, but the lawyer believes there's enough there to proceed. And you also have the potential for a battery case against Myles Garrett. Even though you weren't injured as Mason Rudolph, you still were hit over the head with your own helmet.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a jury decide this whole case, you want that video to be Exhibit A. You want the jury to watch that and say, what's wrong with that guy? And that's the same group that's going to be deciding whether or not Myles Garrett has to compensate Mason Rudolph for any injury to his reputation, because there will be people out there, casual fans, non-fans, people who just hear this. There will be people who assume that Mason Rudolph said it and that Mason Rudolph is walking around with some sort of racial bias in his heart.
Well, yeah. I mean, if again, and I know people are already trying to point that out with Mason Rudolph. People are looking at his Twitter history and comments he's made there and things like that. So yes, it's opened up a can of worms as far as his life, his personal life. People are judging him now when you throw out that kind of statement by Myles Garrett. So we'll see. I don't know why Myles Garrett brought it up again. I guess he feels that strongly about it, and he wants to clear his name to a degree. I hope he learned from this, and again, but it just doesn't line up to me right now from what I've seen. The facts of this point, the reaction after the game, those things do not line up to a guy who used a racial slur and then the other guy acting the way he did. Yes, he was mad on the field, but yeah, no remorse. All the things you said about in the locker room, players aren't saying it, nothing like that. No coaches are saying it on the field to Mike Tomlin right after the game that Myles Garrett said this and blah, blah, blah. None of that went down, and that to me is where it is fishy. And again, like I said, if Mason Rudolph did say it, then he's a horrible person, and I will never root for him again.
And here's the other practical side of it, too, for the Steelers. It's not like this accusation is being made against Ben Roethlisberger where teammates would feel compelled to prop him up. It's a guy that, hey, you know what? You stink anyway.
Right.
And if you said it, get the hell out of here.
Right. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
We heard you. Get out of here.
And listen, I know the Pouncey twins. The Pouncey twins are like the most honest, real guys you'd ever meet in your life. They really are. There is no fluff. They're good people. They really are. They got a great way about them.
Wait. You're talking about the same guys that wore the free Aaron Hernandez hats? Are you talking about those two guys? I just want to be clear.
Well, you're right.
Let's be fair and balanced.
You're right.
Other than that.
Yes. Well, okay. Again, they were at a tough spot there. It was a guy that they grew up with and were in college with and good friends. So they were trying, I think at that point they weren't sure what was going on. Okay. I think they realized that, probably at this point, yes. Okay. But I'm just saying they're very real, honest guys and the type of guys that I don't think would let, their backup quarterback, to what you're saying, get away with that statement. I don't think they would let him get away with it. I think you would have heard from people in the Steelers locker room, from Pouncey, who's told other guys or whatever, hey, I heard Rudolph say this, and it would start to leak out. But we've heard none of that. Like none. Zilch. Nada. And that's where, again, I think it's a little fishy, the whole thing.
The NFL trying to keep their head low on this. I got 2 different emails from the league on Saturday, and I didn't even ask a question.
Yeah,
but
they know you. They know your reputation.
They wanted. They know the platform, baby. They respect the megaphone. They wanted me to know there was no sound recorded from the field during the game. As with every game, there were microphones on the center or interior linemen that help amplify the ambient sound as the quarterbacks are calling signals, but those microphones do not record sound. Microphones are open from the break of the huddle through the snap of the ball. And I also suggested that the NFL could have investigated this separately. They could have brought in Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph and grilled them and come to a conclusion as to who's telling the truth, like they do in a personal conduct policy investigation. The league didn't do that, but the league pointed out to me that they checked with the officiating crew, including the referee who was on top of the play and the ensuing aftermath. No player on either team came forward to say they heard Rudolph say it on the field. There was also no indication of any players saying they heard Rudolph say it in their post-game comments. But again, they very easily could have brought in Rudolph and brought in Garrett and put them under the hot light and asked them a bunch of tough questions and come to a conclusion based upon the demeanor, the statements, the explanation, everything. Who's sweating, who's not, everything that you use to determine who's telling the truth. And they could have come to a conclusion on this. They just don't want to do it. This is a rabbit hole they don't want to go down. This is something they don't want to have to deal with. And thanks to Myles Garrett, they now have to deal with it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.